Hi everyone, Grandpa Jake here from Funtime Grandpa. I'm recovering from a total knee replacement, so this is my first review since I've come out of surgery. Hasn't been the best recovery, but either way, I've kept my spirits high by playing with my Phantoms and a couple of the other products I have. I wanted to tell everybody about a motor that was sent to me. And this motor is unique in a lot of ways. It's the iPower motor. I don't know if you can see it here. I'm not used to doing this backwards, but I figured it'd be easier. It's the iPower motor from a company called iFlight. And I believe it's iflight-rc.com. I'm going to put all this information in the information below the video. But I'm also going to tell you about a motor that I was not too happy with, and it was by GARTT, G-A-R-T-T. Similar pricing, and I had actually complained a little bit to them, and they sent me two replacement motors, but they're a very strong motor, but I keep hearing a little bit of a noise, and to me that bothered me. And what I didn't like is the wires. The ones from GARTT are these quick connects, and also the wire. If you want to solder it onto the Phantom, you got to cut them off really close to the edge, because it's real hard to get the varnish off of the wires that are in there and get them to tin right so that you can put the proper solder on to the Phantom. But either way, I've tried it with these. I got more power than the Phantom motor by far, and the thrust was great. I dropped almost a second in my test going up. I think I went up 100 meters, and I knocked a second off on time. But again, I wasn't real comfortable with the sound. So I'm not going to tell you about these right now. I'm just showing you them that, I've done some comparison. And these by iFlight, they are so smooth. I don't like the spinners, but we're not going to use those anyhow if you're using, not that I don't like them, I don't like the look or the color of them. But either way, you're not going to use them because these will accept the Phantom self-locking blades, so that part is really nice. But the smoothness in this motor, at least by feel, is amazing. And what is really nice about this is it has much more thrust than the GARTT, the Phantom, and even more thrust than the T motors. And the pricing, I've seen it a number of different places. You can usually get two motors for about $40 US, and that's not a bad deal. You could probably save a little if you look around, but I wanted to do this review because I'm going to put these in one of my Phantoms. That it's a Phantom 1, and I've got a gimbal set up to it, and I've actually modified this Phantom, which you're going to see, and I've actually taken out, well, I use this so I wouldn't lose the battery, but I've actually dremeled out the back side of it. I've put the little lamp here, the little indicator off to the side, so I can put in here, I can put a 5200 milliamp battery. And what else nice about it, you don't really see it here, but I actually put a little hole with a little screw in there, and I've got the center of gravity perfect, so that when I put the battery in with the camera, everything else, it literally lifts off perfectly straight, so you don't get any of the tracking, and it's really nice. But by doing that, I still have the same battery door on there that came with it. It's just dremeled out, and I bring the connections out through the front of the cover here. But I can put a 5200 milliamp battery in there without any effort at all, and it really extends the time. But let me get back to the motors. I'll list all the specs on these so you can do some comparison, and feel free to fast forward, because what I'm going to do is just show you how to open up the Phantom, take off the blades, and get ready to take out one motor, and then I'm going to show it to you, complete it, and later on I'll do some testing and try to come back with the results. But so far, this is an amazing motor. I sort of like the black look to it too. I think it's going to be really nice with the white contrast in there, or the black contrast. And also, I wanted to mention, the wires are very flexible. They're already tinned, so it'll be real nice to solder onto the circuit board into the electronic speed controls. I'm going to show you how to do that the proper way too, because if you don't do it with a hot enough iron and you don't get the right amount of solder, you're going to get a cold solder joint, and you'll know that by a sort of an aluminum look versus a shiny silver look, and you want the shiny silver. So I'll show you the right way and the wrong way, but let's get to it real quick. Basically, you just got to pull off your blades. And I was turning the wrong way. So let's get the blades off. And you can skip through this if you're not interested in this part of it, but for those who have never taken it apart, it's a good idea to watch. And all my blades are very well balanced. They're very not only are they balanced, and let me, on my last blade here, I want to show you something. What I do, I use a Dubro balancer, and they are perfectly balanced, so you don't get any of the jello effect. But also what I do, and I'm going to just show you real quick if I have it here. People don't realize this. You can have a perfectly balanced blade, but what if it's like this? What if one's up and one's down like that? You know how bad that's going to wobble? Even though it's perfectly balanced, it's going to be horrible. So what I do, I take a little ruler, which I've actually got a little mark on here, and I bring my blade, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I bring my blade right, you notice that it's touching that mark, then I bring it around, and the other one should touch basically the same spot. If it isn't, you need to know which is correct, and over time you can tell, I know this is the exact mark on a perfectly, factory perfect blade, so that if this one is hitting up here by some chance, I know to bring it down here, or if it's down here, to bring it up here. But they will both be exactly at the same spot. And you can also see that when they're spinning high speed, bring it up about eye level. You should just see a little tip like this. If you see a thicker end when it's spinning, you are not perfectly level with each of the ends, and you want to do that to make it perfect. So let me go ahead, take the last one off here, and I'll try to get past all this stuff for you. So balance your blades. I think that's the most important part of getting a nice crisp video. Now on your screws, you've got 3 of the normal size, and I don't remember what the millimeter is, 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter, I can't remember. But either way, your Phantom comes with an Allen wrench to take them out. I use this because it helps me take them out a little quicker, especially when I get near the landing gear. And I do have a wide landing gear. One of my other reviews will talk about this, and that makes it really nice for taking out, stopping your gimbal from touching. And I'm trying to look for a screwdriver here. I forgot to bring it out for your end screw. So you've got 3 of the same size and 1 Phillips screw. So take them out and put them aside so you don't lose it. So you should have 4 for each side. And the other thing I want to mention, of course, this has been taken apart too many times. If you're going to take it apart and you don't want to keep peeling these off because they do fall, they do tend to not stick, I just take a razor blade and I go right through them so that I can separate it, as you can see, and yet when it comes back together, it's fine, and that won't come apart that way. So let's continue on to the next few. I normally have the camera facing so I can talk to you a little bit easier, but I guess you're just going to have to deal with it this time. So I just realized I had a mistake. I must not have put one of the screws back in when I had it apart earlier. And if it gets a little tight, just hold it together and grab all your screws. This is a Tarot gimbal. was actually off of an Iris that I had, and I modified it to fit to this, and it works really good. I think there's other options out there if you're going to go buy straight out, but I had this, so seeing I had it, I modified it to fit, and it works well. I can get a lot of time flying out of it. As you can see, it's been chopped apart in a few spots, but I can get a good amount of flying time, and the video is beautiful. I use my GoPro Black. It's a GoPro Hero 3 Plus, and it makes for a really nice video. Of course, my Phantom 2 with the 3-axis gimbal, I don't think there's anything that can be much better. It almost looks like it's on a tripod up in the sky. I'm sure if you have a DSLR camera and you got a high-end system that goes beyond it, you might get better. But if you're talking about GoPro on a gimbal, that 3-axis gimbal, the Zemos, I guess it is, 3-axis, it's totally amazing. Go look at my one video that shows flight around my neighborhood. I like the music. It's relaxing, but also you'll see how steady the flight is through the entire time it's up in the sky. Okay, I don't know if I've got them all out or not. I think I do. And what I do at this point, yep, we got it up. I take it off. I usually disconnect it from the controller, and then I just set it off to the side. So I'm going to put this on hold for a minute because I have not heated up my soldering iron, but basically I'm going to take, there's 4 screws on the bottom, and you've got 3 connections that you want to solder to here. And I'm going to show you a couple ways to do the soldering the proper way, so that, as you can see right now, those are nice, shiny silver, if you can see. Get as close as I can. They are very nice and shiny. And that's how you want them to be, because otherwise, if you get a cold solder joint, there's a possibility that that wire is going to just separate from the solder pad on the electronic speed controls. So let me just stop here for a moment, and then I'm going to come back once I heat the soldering iron up, and we'll throw one of the motors in and see how it goes. So hold on a minute, I'll be right back. Okay everyone, what you want to do at this point in time, first you want to have a nice hot soldering iron. I believe this is either 40 or 45 watt. It's a Weller. It's a nice little LED lights on there. It helps a little bit. And I've got a flat tip on there so you get a little more surface when you're soldering. And you want to do a couple things, and see if I can move it this way. You should always, let me see if it's aiming the right way. I don't know if you can see it or not, but you gotta, what they call, tin the blade. And basically you want to take some solder, and the solder I'm using is a 60-40 solder, lead solder. It's 60% tin and 40% lead. It gives a very nice, good electrical connection, and it's a rosin core. And basically you should always put your solder right on the tip, just like that. And then you take and you wipe it across a wet sponge, and I'll show you what comes out of it. It comes out very nice and shiny. And even when you put it away, you should always leave a little solder. Let it cool down with the solder on it so it stays nice and shiny. That's how you want to use your soldering iron. So for now I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to redirect you over to the Phantom, and hopefully you'll be able to see me do this one. So basically what I'm going to do, I've got my soldering iron tinned up a little bit, just a very little solder on there so it makes a nice connection. I wipe it a little bit with the wet sponge so it shines it up nice. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take off my wires. I'll start from the closest one, which on this motor is black, and hold it so it don't snap, because you don't want any splashes onto the little IC components. Take off your next one, let it get hot, and just bring it up off gently. Same thing with the last one. It's a little hard for you to see maybe, but all I'm doing is heating it up and letting it come off. now I take this off, and before I do, you want to make sure you put the proper motor in the proper place. This motor is the silver blade, which the blade itself is going to turn counterclockwise because otherwise you won't have lift. So you need a motor that's going to turn the, basically, how should I say, it spins on clockwise. The motor is turning the opposite direction, so it's always going to stay tight. So make sure you get the proper motor for the proper side, or you're going to flip your Phantom when you take off. So I know this is the proper one here, but basically it should go on the same way. Spins on clockwise, the motor is going to turn the opposite direction. It will never come loose. So let's take that off for now. Now the problem is some of these motors are coming a little bit different color wires than with the Phantoms, and I'm going to show you that. Let me take this one off the rest of the way. I took all but one screw out ahead of time. Oops, we dropped that on the floor. We'll get that later. And as you can see, the wires, well, you can see them this way. The wires are different color. So you want to make sure, usually the way they go, as long as you go what's ever to the left, should be to the left of the one of the Phantom, you won't have a problem. And how I did that is I took, and I called it my silver motor, and basically the Phantom is red, black, yellow, matches on the iFlight blue, red, black. So down here on the little contacts, I'm going to put the red to the front, blue to the middle, black towards the inside. And again, just match your wires up. Blue is going to equal the red, the black on the Phantom is going to equal, I'm sorry, let me start over here. The Phantom, the outside one is yellow, that's going to be the black on the iFlight. The Phantom black is going to be equal to the red, and the Phantom red is going to be equal to the blue. So just make yourself a little chart like I did, so I know what is what, and then all I did is I knew the way they were on the board, so I know I'm going to have to solder the red, blue, and black from outside in, and you won't have any problem. But now, and this is, I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit for you, if I can, to the contacts the best I can. It's probably going to be hard. Maybe if I turn it this way. I want you to see it really close. Tip it down a little bit maybe. Sorry about this, but I want you to know that it's very important anytime you're soldering, especially on something that's up in the air. You want it to be as well as possible. Okay. Well, I haven't had somebody look at it this close in a long time. But so what I want to do, I want to clean these up. And you can do it a couple of ways. You can buy yourself, basically it's a solder sucker, and it's done by hydraulics, and I'm going to back this up later and show it to you. But well, let me back it up now, because otherwise you're going to get confused with it. The solder sucker is a plunger type. You push it, load it, put that, get everything hot, and then go, and you'll see this thing jump up. That's going to suck the most amount of the solder off the board, and that works really good. And what I do to make it perfectly clean, it's called a solder wick. This is an old container of it, but basically it's braided wire, which is copper, and you set that on the contact, which I'm going to do, and you apply heat to it. The solder will absorb right into the wick and pull it off the board. It's so clean that it's like it came from the factory before it was soldered together. So let's zoom back in. Whoops. And hopefully we'll see what I want to see there. I hope that's focused enough for you guys, but let's see what happens. So again, I'm going to just clean my soldering iron off. You don't want a lot of solder in there. I'll try with the solder gun, the solder sucker first, charge it up, and I'm going to try to take, see if you can see that. I'll try to do the first one here. Get that solder hot, put it on, and it took off a lot. And actually, dried as a cold solder joint, which is good for me to show you. If there's any solder in there, pull it out. Go to the next one. And just put it over something so you can pull out the old solder. Go to the last one. And charge it out. Now, I think you can see that, well, there's still a little on that one there. I can see it when I look back at the camera. So what I'm going to do is take the solder wick, and it's going to get hot, so you want to get it to the point where you don't have your finger too close to it. So I set that right on the contact, and I hope this isn't too close to show, but I'm going to go a little bit further and bring it right back into it. And I did get some solder there. So what, if you can see it now, it's nice and clean. I take and I'm going to cut the end of this little solder wick off so I get a fresh piece. And I'm going to go to the other two, start back with the first one I was at. More time to make sure I get it really nice and clean, because I like to start out with fresh solder when I take something this important apart. So I'm going to just clean it up a little bit. Yeah, they look very good. So I see a couple of pieces of solder floating around. I'm going to put you on hold for a second, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a magnifying glass in there and make sure I don't have any pieces of solder sitting on any of the circuits that are nearby. It's very important to clean that off. So hold on 1 minute, I'll be right back. Okay, I've checked over everything and I don't see any little splashes anywhere, but it's not a bad idea to take a magnifying glass and go down and look at all the little areas, all those little printed circuit boards and little diodes and that they have down there, and make sure you have no splashes. You don't want to short something out. So at this point, I did one other thing. I didn't show you, but I'm going to show you at the end. When you solder with a rosin core solder, which is what you need so that it flows very well inside the wire, it creates a little bit of a goo, which it's not really going to hurt anything. But I take a little, actually, it's denatured alcohol from, you can get it at the hardware store or whatever, and I take a little toothbrush, not the one I use, and I put a little bit on the tip of this and I just brush it over and it cleans it off really nice. There's nothing left there. And I'm going to do it again when I'm done, but I wanted to show it to you nice and clean. So now what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to take my solder, and again it's a 60-40. That's what you want to use, or at least what I believe in using for this kind of work. And you'll see on there, let's see, can you see it from there? Let's see, right there. It should be saying 60% tin and 40% lead. And this is made by, I don't know if I'm going to say it right, Kester, K-E-S-T-E-R. And I wipe off the soldering iron with a wet sponge, and then I add a little bit to it so it gets really nice and shiny. Make sure I don't have any big drips there. And then hopefully you can see what I'm going to do here. Let's see, I'm trying to look both ways at the screen and there. I'm going to clean, or I'm going to put a little solder on each of those pads now that have been all cleaned off. Nice sized ball of solder. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and mount the motor with one of the screws so that we can have it held in place so it doesn't fall all over. Bring one of the screws up, set the motor approximately the way it was. Okay, I'm having a little problem there. There we go. bring it back in line for you. I don't like to keep it so focused in that you can't see what I'm trying to get at. And again, I'm going to try to go back to that. I may move the camera up a little bit. Hang on a second. Okay, hopefully that will be a little bit easier for everyone to see. So what did I say I had to do? Oh, I got a little alcohol on there, but I want to go red, blue, black. So I'm going to go the black first because it's the farthest one away. And I'm going to take the black wire, and I'm going to add a little solder to it. And see if I can show you this. I'm going to zoom out. Hate to keep doing this, but that way you'll see what I'm doing so that you do it right. It's very important, and as much as I don't like going back and forth, you need to see how to do it. So you put the soldering iron right on the wire and get a nice glob of solder right on that. So now the important thing is, and we're going to go back and zoom in a little bit here, is to make sure that we get it hot enough that that solder not only flows between the two, but it heats that little pad up enough that it will stay nice and shiny when we're done. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to put it right on now. Leave it on there a little bit. Oops, I slipped a little bit. That's okay. I'll just move it over. And as you can see, we got a very shiny solder, but I didn't like the way it's set on there, so I'm going to let it cool for a second. I'll put a little more solder right on it and hold it tight. Alright, let me see if I can show you that one. See, it's nice and shiny. You want it shiny like that. It's important that it's shiny. If not, it could be a cold solder joint. It may hold for a while, but could end up letting go when you don't want it to, trust me. So now we got to go with our blue. And the same thing, I'm going to be putting a little solder on the end of that blue wire. I'm not going to back out to show you that, but I'm doing that right now. If you have another person that could hold it there and could work the solder, that would even be better. But if not, hopefully you can see. Here we go again. Let's do the blue one. That looks good. And that was burning my finger. And I'm going to take the red wire out and flip it over on top of the other. Again, I'm putting solder on the red wire. And I'm going to bring that over. And I'm going to try to get that pressed in. I see that I melted the edge of my Phantom here, but that's alright. Make sure you keep it on long enough to get hot. And I'm going to show you something here. As you can see, I actually have a cold solder joint, and let me see if I can get that in there. You see how that is not shiny right there? You need to get more heat on it, and otherwise it probably will hold. It's not a bad solder joint, but I am not trusting that until I see that it's perfect. So I'm going to actually put solder on it, with it on there, and I'm going to go back and try to hold it. Now that's a good one. Now if you look at it, hopefully you can see, let me see if I can get it there. You've got that nice shine to it. And if you want to take, like I said, a little denatured alcohol and dip it into the toothbrush and just clean it up a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. I have to fix this up. I melted that bit trying to show everybody, but I can fix that. So here we go, and now if I can zoom in, you actually have 3 nice contacts on there. So now I've got the wires in the right place, and I'm going to back out, which will be a lot easier for me to show you. And that's basically it. just want to make sure you tuck your wires inside so that when you put the case back on, it's okay. And as you can see, I melted this here a little bit, so I'm going to take a little razor blade and just trim that up with sandpaper, and that will be fine. So I'll go back and I'll put the other 3 screws on. As you can see, I've got the right motor on there. And if you just want to do a quick test, it should turn this way because you want to get lift. Lift's going to come from the front edge, the leading edge. So just do it real quick to show you that it is turning that way and that the motors do work. Not that I want to have it fly away on me, but I'll be careful. Just so I could see it. It's rubbing on the rest of the plane, but you could see that it was turning in the proper direction. So that's all I wanted to do. I would normally not do that, but I wanted to show you that it is turning the right way and that you've got the proper prop on the correct motor. Alright, this is getting a little bit confusing. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to pay attention now where I don't have to try to show you and make sure I'm videoing it properly. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the other 3 motors. I'm going to go back one last time and I'm going to check with the magnifying glass above here, which I don't know if you can see. I've got a really nice, a really nice magnifying glass. Got that up at Harbor Freight for about $30-some. It's also got a nice fluorescent light around it, and I also have which you can get, and it's up at Harbor Freight, and it's glass, which is nice, and you can zoom right in on whatever you need to see. Make sure you got no solder splashes. Make sure your wires look nice and shiny. Tuck them in nice. Connect to your motors. Do not over tighten them. If you're unsure of how tight to make them, go to another motor and see how much force it takes to turn it in a little bit, and go back to these, because if you tighten them too much you're going to start getting stress cracks all around each of the areas where you screw it in. So at that point, when you're all said and done, make sure you hook up your GPS to the controller. Make sure that's right, and make sure if you did it the way I told you, where you cut the little what do they call it, the little red stickers, make sure you put them in the right place, otherwise you're going to be putting your GPS in the wrong direction. So always make sure you have it on the proper way, and you always have the little detents. As long as you have the detents, they match up nice, you're going to be good to go. So that's about it. I actually like the look of the black motor. We'll see when it's together. Maybe I'll come back and show it to you all complete, and then again I will update you on after I do a few tests. But for the price, I mean, these are like silk, and they've got, and they are balanced motors. I'm going to mention it in the description because they are dynamically balanced motors, so that should make for a very smooth flight if you balance your props. So let me end at this point, and y'all can go out and do what you want, but I'll give you the update on the motors and we'll go from there. So from Funtime Grandpa, and it's Grandpa Jake here. I hope you all have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye now. Oops.